Okay. Hello, hello, hello. We are learning Torah Daled and Likutey Moharan II, the second Chilek. Amen. So, after we recount on a ship, Sphinta, and so that precious stone that there was a sea serpent circling around it, and a swimmer went down to take it. But that serpent came and wanted to swallow the ship. Came a female crow, who cut its head off, and the water, the seawater, became red, like filled with blood. Came a second sea serpent and took that gem and put it on its comrade, and it revived it. So that serpent, the original serpent that just came back alive, wanted to swallow the ship once more time. They never learn, do they? Sea serpents. They'll make them like they used to. So came that female crow again and cut its head off and took that gem and threw it onto the ship. It says, we had salted birds, preserved birds, shechter preserved birds by this on the boat, and I put the gem on it. And they too became alive again, and they flew off, this time taking the gem with them. Those birds that were dead, they were shechted, came alive again, took the gem, and flew away. That's a story. And this entire Maisa is obviously a marshal to this entire Torah. One time we went in the Sphinta, in the boat. Sfino is Lashon Sofon V'Choshev. This is the place that Moshe Rabbeinu is buried. Kisham Chelkas Mechoykek Sofon. This is the plot where the lawgiver is buried. Sofon means it's buried, it's treasured, it's that. This is something that alludes to Shor Sharoson, the very source of the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we saw there that place, the ultimate place in the world, Moshe Rabbeinu was mishtakik for it. And we saw Evan Tov, we saw a good stone. Stone is a euphemism for rotzing. In Mishlei, the pasuk actually says, Mozne mir matayves Hashem be'evan shlomo ritzayne. It talks seemingly about something totally unrelated. It talks about, what does Hashem hate? Hashem hates when people use falsified ways of business. It says, Mozne mirma, falsified ways. That's the abomination of Hashem, cannot stand it. Ve'evan shleimo, and stones, weights that have a precise, that exactly the right weight. And the shleimo retzaynai. That's what he wants. He wants an even shleimo. Shlomo Melech sees it because Baruch Hu wants you to deal honestly. By the way, this Torah is about tzedakah, right? The beginning of tzedakah is Maso Matan Be'emunah, is dealing honestly. That's the first step of charity. I mean, there are there are people that make a lot of money. They give money either for tax purposes or even whatever. Even when they give money with tzedakah, they can be generous. But we said that the value of charity depends on how much you break your impetus to behave differently, not to give. Because somebody is naturally, generous, cannot bring himself to say no. Well, it's very nice you have a mitzvah tzedakah, but the avoid of tzedakah you don't have. So that obviously explains why the very beginning of tzedakah is to deal honestly in business. That's the biggest temptation, right? If the money that the person made is not kosher, tzedakah does not nullify it. If the money is not kosher, then so the very beginning of tzedakah is dealing properly and honestly. When Rabbi Nachman was talking about judging yourself every day, and it says, what's the pshat? What does it mean judging yourself at all times? They say that if there's judgment below here, if you judge yourself, there's no judgment in the Shemayim. Person that doesn't judge himself here below, then there's judgment in the Shemayim. So they asked him, what does it mean to judge yourself? He said, judge yourself means somebody else's dollar. Somebody else's shekel. Oh, sorry about that. Somebody else's penny. Don't touch someone else's penny. That's mean you judge yourself means make sure that you don't touch money that belongs to someone else. That's the beginning of tzedakah. I mean, you're eating popcorn and I'm coughing. Doesn't stem. Anyhow, I don't think so. No, it's fine. So, Nachas Baramoy came. This is a swimmer. Baramoyo. This alludes to a Hashem Kedusha that connects all the returns to Sharash HaRatzon. So Atatanino Kabal Balzafito came that sea serpent and wanted to swallow the boat. It means that the wild animals of Chochmei Teva want to swallow the emunah sarotzon, they believe that everything behaves according to Ratzon Hashem. Ata Pushkanza came that Oirev crow. Pascal Ereshe. Oirev, we said in the very beginning of the Torah, is a euphemism for tzedakah. They came to tzedakah and cut off the head of Metzach HaNachos. So that's the first step in the cycle. There is a constant war between Metzach HaNachos and Metzach HaRatzon, You give tzedakah, it defeats Metzach HaNachash. That's Ad Kana Kof Aleph. That's step one. The Hadar Tanina, came another and put, and make its friend alive. As we said, that the pushkansa, the oir of the tzedakah, cut the head of the nachash. It kills it through the tzedakah. Says Rabbeinu, v'sapchu maya v'avrodama. The water became blood. In other words, by defeating the metzach hanochosh, the forehead of snake, shorish chochmas hateva, the root of the natural sciences. It's not even natural sciences. Is it the belief that everything is natural, the belief that the world runs on laws without any rotzim of Kosh Baruch Hu behind it. That defeated and brought down the roar of the vicious animals. That maul and devour many of our people. I mean, each and every one of us has a certain aspect of, believing in nature, believing in, when push comes to shove, it's like there's a law leinu, law lechem, somebody is unwell, there's somebody unwell in the family, chas v'chalila or something. So they go to the doctors say, chas v'chalila, this time you have to go to a professor, whatever it is, and you have a more imuno, they say, you should daven, whatever it is. You go to the professor, so far so good. Then they say that, let's say the professor says, these people, this is something which is above his pay grade. For this, you have to send the medical file to this big mumcha in America, in Boston, whatever it is, a hospital, whatever it is. And so the family, of course, is saying to Hillel, whatever it is, but is borrowing money, collecting money, borrowing, to go take everybody to America, to whatever. And when that person gets Lalino to the professor in America, and the professor in America tells him, "You're a religious person, aren't you?" He says, "Yeah." So he says, "Well, I suggest you pray," he tells him. And then the person starts to cry. He starts to daven. What happened until now? Where were you until now? You see, now you're crying, you're davening, you already knew this thing was going on for how many months, whatever it is. Now you're starting. Because until that point, that person had faith in Chochmeh Teva. Of course, you believe in Kodesh Baruch Hu, you daven a little bit, whatever, everything is fine, but come on, let's be serious now. But when the professor in America, after everything is said and done, says, "Listen, there's nothing I can do about it," then you start to daven. What? Then you realize, then the moon and Chochmah Sateva gets broken. It's not such a rare occurrence. Almost everybody like that. This Indian of it's very. Everybody's susceptible to that. That's why it's so important to give tzedakah. So this is the highest rise, the devours many of our people. And when they are defeated, I nishma kol akriya shel Yom Tov, shehu his galus harotzain. Then it is heard the calling of the rotzain. As we said before, that is Yom Tovim. The very essence of Yom Tovim calls out the fact that this world is not a natural world. It runs on divine will. That's the energy of everything. That's the thing that drives everything, determines everything. Vazai comes the pasuk Ismach Tzadik Yichazonokom. A tzaddik shall rejoice, for he has seen, or you will see, deliverance. As we explain, what is the very, very deep Indian of nekama, of revenge, at the end of days, because that retrieves the primordial light that existed in the very beginning of the creation of the world. So the very same way that a person feels and hears the sound of the calling out of Yom Tovim is how he has a simcha of Yom Tov. And the same kind of simcha of Yom Tov, commensurately, you know that all the rigmarole, all the trials and tribulations that the Goyim have put us through, Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to take revenge. The water turned. That's the roar of the vicious animals, which is the water. Mayim Rabim. My roaring will pour like water. It became blood, means that blood, Rabbeinu says, this is something that alludes to Simchas Yom Tov. The Pchinas Ismach Tzadik Chazonokom, Pamav Yirchotz B'dam Avosho. The Tzadik will rejoice, for he had seen revenge. Pa'omov, his steps, Yirchotz, he will wash B'dam Avosho, in the blood of the Rasha. Through the Yom Tovim, will ultimately get the rejoice of the primordial light that will break through, will break forth, that we will be able to reap through the Isgalus, the Rosh and Yom Tovim. It is through the defeating of the calling Chosres. This brings about the ultimate deliverance of the tzaddik will rejoice, for he had seen revenge. Because the voice of the calling out of the Yom Tov, the announcement, the revelation, the world runs according to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to. That's the calling of the Yom Tov. This is when the water became blood, the water which is the strife of the Chesros, becomes blood, becomes the ultimate retribution. It becomes Simchas Yom Tov. Came a second sea serpent. Shakla v'talo v'achi. He took the precious stone, put it on its friend, and brought it back to life. It means Sheba Pchinas Metzach Hanochosh. Until now, you're dealing with Chayasres, the bad animals, the vicious animals. Those were defeated through the tzedakah. That's the first step in doing it. Now, Atatanina Chavesh Shakla V'Tara comes Metzach Hanochosh and revives the defeated Metzach Hanochosh. Sheba Pchinas Metzach Hanochosh v'Shakla le'Even Tov It took the good storm, the Talalei, it put a suffix in it. Means it hung that stone, that gem, like something which is hanging, go this way, go that way. How do you know? Many times, people don't even need when they inflict heresy on someone else. They don't have to. Many times they don't even have to prove anything. So how do you know? Maybe it's not. Sometimes it's enough to shake a person. It's like a person is like he's not really stable. He's not really 100% convinced. So how do you know? Maybe yes, maybe no. Oh man. The Talile that hung it, in other words, it puts a suffix, puts a doubt. Something which depends on a suffix, maybe yes, maybe not. After the first step that the Metzach Nochosh, the vicious animals were defeated, the Metzach Nochosh revived it again. It was defeated by the Chochem Kedusha. It was Mikasher, the Rotz, all the Ritzonos, all the things that are happening in the world to Shashar Rotz, and he proved that every single thing is happening and existing because the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants it to be that way. Then it comes the Metzach HaNochosh and starts dealing with the Chochem Kedusha, start arguing with him and this and that. As the Rebbe says, it becomes with such an argument of very subtle things until it can Chas v'Chalila put a suffix, maybe, Efsher. I'm not saying, but there's Achye. It rejuvenated Chochmas HaTeva. Metzach HaNochosh. Ki Chochmas HaTeva Chazor and Isgabro al Yidei She'as Sofek Barotzin. There's no need for proof. All it needs is just a suffix. It just needs a doubt. That's it. Doesn't need anything else more than that. And it comes alive again. I'll say Bible. Now the sea serpent, Metzach HaNochosh. This is the second. The first one was the Chayosres, was the vicious animals. Now we're talking about the forehead of the Nochosh, the Metzach HaNochosh. Wanted to swallow the ship. Came again the same crow, the same female crow, Irvim, Tzedakah. And it cut the head of the Metzach HaNochosh. Shehorak Metzach HaNochosh v'ichnio, and it defeated it. Because this is a principle that you need to know. You always defeat the Metzach HaRotzon through tzedakah. Of course, Metzach HaNochosh through tzedakah. Now I took the Even Toivo and threw it into the boat. After Choshev Kedusha has defeated Metzach HaNochosh, Chochmas HaTeva, completely, then he took the Even Toiv, then he took the Pchinas Rotzon, Das Evish Roimer Retzoinoi, V'shadi al Sfinta, and it threw it up into Shorosh HaRotzon, Shesham Mekashrim Kol Retzoinos. There, all the Retzoinos are connected. So basically we have a two-step process. The first step is that through the tzedakah, you defeat the calling out of the vicious animals. You megala the will of Kodesh Baruch Hu, the way it is expressed by the Yom Tevin. That's step number one. Step number two begins with Metzach HaNochosh. Metzach HaNochosh means it's a it's stubbornness, it's akshonis. You know, this says the Novi says, Metzach isha zoyna hoyso hoyaloch meantlis leikola. You had the audacity of a loose woman. You refused to be embarrassed. The Novi said to Am Yisrael, I mean, you refused to be embarrassed. You were as emboldened, bold-faced, like a Isha Zoyna Shemirach. Refuse. Am Yisrael is chutzpah. She's bold-faced because she's not embarrassed.
How she's not embarrassed? No one knows what she's doing.
We're talking about something. It's the chutzpah. So people know.
How people know?
It's an interesting thing. It's one of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, not the last one, his father-in-law. So he said that people that do Averis, they don't realize, but they advertise who they are to other people. They advertise who they are. They give, telltale signs. They leave breadcrumbs behind. They let people know who they are. But he was talking about, a woman who was a prostitute is in the market. I mean, that she refuses to be ashamed. She's mizana with people, and the Novi said this. The Am Yisrael and the Teichacha, it said, was so stubborn, so bold-faced. You are like this Shemirachem, this woman that refuses to be embarrassed. The Metzach HaNochosh, ultimately, there is a stubbornness of Metzach HaNochosh. It says the Chayasros are people, scientists, they enjoy what they're doing. They're good at it. They're physicists. They're this. They get Nobel Prizes. They get, they get, they get called the Moshe Gross. A big deal out of this. But there is a Chochem, is a Chochem Ateva that doesn't get any enjoyment from his Chachma. It's just to spite. And the reason why it's called Metzach HaNochosh is because Rashi says the Nochosh bites, it has no pleasure out of biting. It eats sand. It eats offer. Where are you going? Why are you biting people? What's the? It's a principle. They say that the famous mashal that the scorpion that asked the frog to swim it, to bring it over the river. It was the river. So the frog said, "But you're gonna sting me. You're gonna kill me." So the scorpion says to the frog, "If I sting you, I drown also." Okay, makes sense. So the frog took the scorpion in the middle of the river. The scorpion stung the frog. So as it is dying, the frog says, "But..." So the scorpion says, "Scorpion is a scorpion. That's it. It's inevitable. The scorpion is it's nature. Has no taiva for it. There's no pleasure from it. It's just what it is." Metzach HaNochosh is just for what it is, just for the principle of it. There's no pleasure in it. And then when the second step is done, and now we had these slaughtered salted birds that we put that eventide, this gem, and these birds came alive and took the gem and flew away. And as we had these salted birds, this is Nafshos Yisrael Mibnei Abenu. This is the Jews from that were mistaken and went after them. The Chochmei Teva, this is wild animals after the wild animals that devour and maul many of the people of our nations. This is called salted birds. Many times when it says Tziporim Achuzas Bapach, when the Torah wants to give a mashal for people that were captured by their taivas and now have to pay the price. The mashal, the parable that's giving, is like birds that are captured in a snare. They saw they're coming for food, you think coming this or that, they're snared. Now crying doesn't help. After everything is said and done. Because they were confused by the wild animals. And they mistook, they went after them. Now they flew off. They went out, Baruch Hashem, to the heaven Tov. This Pinas Rotzoin that was Misgala, that was revealed. And then, when there is the exposure of the Rotzoin, then becomes zero. Because when you know that everything runs according to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it, it keeps you on your toes. Because if a person does not realize that the world is willful, okay, this stuff, maybe you succeed, maybe you don't. Your work didn't work well. It's not shaykh to have Yiras Shamayim. But when there's Galas HaRatzon, when it becomes obvious that the Kodesh Baruch Hu runs the world, then, people become much more aware of the fact that, if a person does good, he gets good. If a person does not so good, and so the Yira, once a person has the Yira, the person in the Yira has the boundaries. The person has boundaries, can be Mekabel the Chesed. And the Chesed doesn't hurt it. The Chesed does not bury it. But Adobe Fakir, it becomes a keli to receive the plenty, the bounty. Zegam Pchinas Parchut is also a bechina of flying, blooming. Here you see that the staff of Aaron HaKohen was put in Kodesh HaKodeshim, brought off fruit and flowers. Aaron Lebes Levi. Aaron is the Chesed, Levi is the Gvura. Being that there was Levi, being that there was Yiras Shamayim, is Aaron, there's Chesed. And the Prince Hashpos, Chesed of the Yira. Chesed comes through the Yira that is manufactured by the fact that the realization that everything in this world runs according to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it. This brings the Yiras Shamayim, which enables you to be called Chesed. So Likutey Moharan II explains this. Why do you need this double process? First time, you bring them down. then they come up again, and then you bring them down again. So also Likutey Moharan is as follows. Possibly it seems strange, since the tzedakah has this power to totally defeat Chochmas HaTeva and to fortify the Ratzin completely. As we say, ultimately everything is tzedakah. You start with tzedakah and you end with tzedakah. The first cycle starts with tzedakah. The second step is starting and ending with tzedakah. So why not finish the whole thing in one step? Why not everything being correct in one step? In other words, the tzedakah, you give tzedakah properly, so mimela you get immediately. Since everything's tzedakah, so why is it divided into two? Ask Reb Nosson. So this is, but it is through in the beginning you defeat the Chochmas HaTeva, Megala the Rotzen. But it can be that the Rotzen is not that strong. Then you have to give tzedakah again. But this is a big favor Kadosh Baruch Hu has done, because he is thinking machshavas that people will never get lost from him. This is why the Tikkun is divided into two, because there are these lost souls that were captured in the Tos. They believe in this. They believe in Chochmat HaTeva. It's like and by being Megala the Rotzen for that tzedakah, you elevate them, those who made mistakes. And ultimately, it says, for the tikkun of these fallen neshamas, it must be that the tikkun will be divided into two. After Yezucha to be mechnia the Ratzon through Simchas Yom Tov, still they can put a suffix in the Ratzon, maybe yes, maybe not. You have to give tzedakah again with Megal Ratzon. So it says, dafka between these two tikkunim, between the first one and the second one, then you also to be second to elevate these fallen neshamas. See, because at the very beginning, when you're dealing with, when you started with Misak and the Rotzin, started with Megala the Rotzin, the Megala, the fact that Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the show, these people are still lost. These neshamas are still, they believe in this. What do you want? Okay, so I shouldn't go to the doctor. What? I mean, they're very far. There's one who fell asleep. Okay, fine. It doesn't work like that. Because they're following very much. You can't just, the Chacham cannot just bring himself down and elevate them, before he started defeating the Metzach HaNochos. But after defeating Metzach HaNochos itself, not just the wild animals, those are his pleasure from, but the Metzach, the action, the Tumah itself, then it can go down and fix it. One of the deepening aspects of Emunah and advancement in Avodas Hashem I don't know if it ever happened to you, when you take a look at, it can be either a mitzvah or a door that you learn Torah and you understand what it is that you're learning. In the beginning, as Rabbeinu says, Kadosh Baruch Hu at a certain level. Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the show. Okay, do the mitzvahs, don't do averas. Okay. But as you go along, suddenly you realize that it's not just that Kadosh Baruch Hu blessed you or didn't bless you. It's deeper than that. Every single day, you come to realize as you go along that every single day, it's not just that Kadosh Baruch Hu is matzliach, what it is that you do, give you success, but in other words, he succeeds whatever it is that you do, is doing itself requires siyata d'shmaya. Without Kadosh Baruch Hu helping, you can't even do. Kadosh Baruch Hu has to help you in order to do. And it seems like the further you advance into Avodas Hashem, the more microscopic your histaklos becomes. See, how deep is the siyata d'shmaya that you get and everything? How every single thing that you want, every single thing that you do, every single thing that happens, the Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there, permeates it, gives it chayas. You can't get to shul in the morning if Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't help you. A person cannot put food in his mouth without Kadosh Baruch Hu helping him. Usually, before you get to that point, you realize, I hope that I'm going to eat only something that is natural, healthy. And you get further and further until you need to ask Hashem just to take the food and put it in your mouth. And that the food will go and, the food will be digested properly. I remember Reb Simcha Balev telling me years ago, when a person is new to Yiddishkeit, a person is very young, so a person tends to grasp what's being special in Avodas Hashem. You wake up Chatzos and you daven Vasikin, and maybe you do a Tanesa or whatever it is that the avodas that people do. So tzaddikim, they get their chayas. What about regular daven? It's okay, but you wake up Chatzos. This is something, now you're talking, He said, tzaddikim, they get their chayas from tzitzis. Wearing tzitzis. Putting on film. There's no way that you can explain how do you get chayas from film? How do you get chayas from tzitzis? As they said, you got to be there. Once you're there, it's so obvious to you, you don't understand how nobody else feels it. The emunah becomes more and more partial. When a person is young in either in years or in Avodas Hashem, whichever, the Gemara says, "Achash meroishoy yasuk b'Torah." You have a headache, go learn Torah. You have this kind of pain, go learn Torah. If a person has aches all over the body, go learn Torah. So when you're young, you understand it. So this is gula. If you have a headache, you learn Torah, it'll dispel your headache. But as you advance in Avodas Hashem, and the main advance in Avodas Hashem is Galos Halotzi, meaning for you, you start to want what the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants. So you can explain it that if a person has a headache, go learn Torah. Because you know why? Because then either it'll relieve the headache or it won't. But that's not the point. The point is that you'll have Torah learning, that you'll avoid the headache. It's a higher Torah. It's a bigger Torah. To serve Kadosh Baruch Hu the way you are. I mean, the first step is Kadosh Baruch Hu should heal me, should fix me, should whatever it is, and then Baruch Hashem. But the second step is that you realize the way you are, with your inabilities, with your infirmities, with all the things you can't do. You serve Kadosh Baruch Hu with that. Kadosh Baruch Hu wants it. If it's this the way things are, you serve Kadosh Baruch Hu with that. I don't want to be infirm. I don't want to be limited. I don't want to do this. I want to that. And achinami. Not the Kadosh Baruch Hu will help you. Don't worry about that. But in the meantime, this is what it is. Serve Kadosh Baruch Hu with that. There's the famous story that Chazal said about Shmuel Hanavi, that Eli Cohen blessed his mother, that she will give birth. She didn't have children, and when she brought him over, so he said for Shmuel, when she brought him over to the Mishkan, there were too many sacrifices. There were not enough koyanim to shecht it. Shmuel was a kid. So he said, Shechita Ksher Bazar. You don't need a kohen to shecht. Kohen to spritz the blood from then on, but Shechita is Ksher Bazar. Being that Eli was the Tzaddik Ador, so he said he's a Mori Aloha B'nei Rabbi. He paskins Aloha, while his Rebbe, the Tzaddik Ador, Tzaddik Ador is there. Anybody who does that, Hashem Yirachem, is Chayav Misa V'dei Shamayim. So Eli HaKohen told Shmuel's mother, he says, don't worry, I will bless you, I'll give you a child that's better than this one. So Chana, Shmuel's mother, said, Elanar Azeit Palalti. I prayed for this kid. What is she saying? He tells her, I'm going to give you a greater tzaddik. A son is going to be a great tzaddik, Shmuel Hanavi, which is equal to Moshe and Aaron combined. So what does she tell him? What is the answer? She tells him, I davened for this child. In other words, this is not just a child who is better or worse. It's a child that was prayed for. You can't give me that. You can give me a child with a bigger prodigy, fine. But a child that I davened for, this you can't give me. When a person lives his life davening for everything, wanting everything that you want when you get to want the way things are. This is when this chavos of the Ritzonis to the Metzach HaRotzah, to the Shor HaRotzah. Ultimately, we understand, every single thing, every single detail in the world is the way it is because Kodesh Baruch Hu wants to be that way. The tzaddik is mekasher all these particular ritzonos to the Shor HaRotzah. But ultimately, what is Nagia to me? Nagia to me is because my own situation, my health, my learning, well, it's also a very specific tzimtzum that is specifically the way Kodesh Baruch Hu wants it to be. With the koach of the tzaddik, with tzedakah, you can connect it to Metzach HaRotzon. In other words, become content with the way it is. As they say in 12-step programs, you should have the emunah to accept the things you cannot change. That's what they say. And the courage to change the things that you can, and the wisdom to tell the difference. to know which is which. But the main thing is it all starts with tzedakah. With tzedakah, you get the emunah that the way you are right now, warts and all, because Kodesh Baruch Hu wants it right now this way. I have problems paying rent. I have problems paying debts. I have, problems with challenges with the children or with the grandchildren or with shalom bayis or with this. It's all specific. It's not just things didn't work out. No, it works out all the time. It has to be misakan. You have to be mitaken the dinim. You have to mamtik the dinim. You have to daven for it. You have to give pidyonis, give tzedakah, mamtik that. But first and foremost, things the way they are because Kodesh Baruch Hu wants them this way. This way. What do you mean Kodesh Baruch Hu? It's hyperchatzon Hashem. What are you talking about? And it can be very confusing. But overall, over the whole thing, there's a munah. Things are exactly the way Kodesh Baruch Hu wants them. Now, they said that once a chassid of the Baal Tanya came to Baal Tanya, and he said, things are this and that, and he complained and this and that. The Baal Tanya said to him, if you were a Kodesh Baruch Hu, what would you do? So that chassid said, well, I'll do it this way, I'll do it that, I'll do this, I'll do that. Baal Tanya says, you know something? If I were a Kodesh Baruch Hu, I'll do things exactly the way they are right now. Last time we spoke about missing now, missing this moment, as a way of making the most of your time. Vaya of the nefesh, it's going to pass. This moment is going to go. Sometimes you can't even call out. Sometimes you pass periods in your life, you don't even feel like davening. Every now and then, maybe you say a word. Maybe you don't even say a word, you just krechts. You just, you sigh. Nothing makes any sense for me. The best way to make sense of wherever you are is start with thank you. Thank Baruch Hashem, things are exactly this way. I don't understand. This is, how can you tell me Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to, come on. I don't know. The bilbulim come from the chayesra, from the wild animals, or metzach hanachash. You need to do ishtadlus, you need to daven. Sometimes all you can do is wait. We all see that we have highs and lows. You have periods when things are going well, things are not so well. It's a
ebbs and flows.
Exactly right. Thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu at every given moment, because every moment is an auspicious moment, because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu has pre-designed this moment for things to be exactly that way. Hashem Yisborach, B'ezrat Hashem, will give us koyach, so we can wake up, we can learn Torah, we can do tshuva, we can daven, we can use our time for the best of our abilities, and give us koyach to give tzedakah and to wait. To give tzedakah and to wait. Wait. Anybody who comes to, to purify himself, wait. There's a lot of waiting involved in the Avodas Hashem. A lot of doing, a lot of waiting. Hashem should help us, Hashem, to see Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Bina Beis Hamikdash, Bina Yerushalayim, Rabbi Yameinu, B'ezrat Hashem, soon in our days, with Shabbos, how to